Good afternoon. Just to make a sound check to make sure that we can at least hear each other. So is there anyone from the other side of cyberspace who can really give me a signal that you can hear me at least?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Very
good. Very good. So I think that we can get started. Do we need Natasha to wait for anyone else? I think we are all here, huh? Okay. Good afternoon once again. My name is Amer Kapetanovic. I'm head of the political department in the Regional Cooperation Council. And it's really my pleasure to welcome you on the third side event meeting we organized with United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, and the first one that we are organizing with UN Population Fund. Pleasure really on our side to have this partnership because it's vitally important for what we are trying to achieve in the implementation of the SEE2030 strategy. I hope you had time to glimpse through the documents that my colleague Umut Ergez has shared with you in preparation for this meeting so that you can probably see what we are aiming at with the implementation of the SEE2030 strategy, what are the main goals, the main strategic trajectory. And I hope you have noticed that actually we have put a lot of tasks for ourselves, and one really big one called that actually we want to do our best to help eradicating poverty and decelerating depopulation through enhancing the quality of life. This is in particular a reason why we are so focused also on the human security concept, as it recognizes that there are several dimensions, as you may know, related to feeling safe, such as also freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom from indignity, protection from physical and economic harm, access to basic needs such as food and water, but also respect of human rights and the environment. I hope you would agree with me that, if we want to speak about one of the biggest challenges that our region is facing these days, and this is definitely the depopulation, because some statistics and projections are rather gloomy, such as the one which clearly showcases that this region, Southeast Europe, is going to shrink in population within next 80 years, basically from 150 million to 120 million people. What we want to actually discuss today, and what is our main focus here, is to try to see what are the main reasons for these depopulation trends. What are the main reasons for people wanting to leave the region, wanting to emigrate, and to what extent they are feeling unsecure in their environment, which brings them to the decision to leave, and many other also elements which we deem very important here in this context. And therefore, for us, the human security as a concept is very important. We have a couple of instruments that are at our disposal that we are going to use in doing so. First instrument is the Securimeter, the public opinion survey that we make every year, and we try to measure exactly what brings people to feel secure or insecure, but also what is actually that maybe make some minority groups in our region to feel also insecure. To what extent this is the economic context, political context, and any other possible context. So to that end, and the second actually also very important instrument that Umut is going to share with you a little bit in his presentation, very important one that we are trying to develop within the SEE2030 strategy is this inclusive growth index, which I think would also help us to measure the trend of growth, economic growth, but to what extent that growth is also generating inequality or quality. So this is equality, sorry. And this is something I think also very important that we have as instruments at our disposal. But to cut long story short here at the very beginning, I think and I do hope that we are going to have fruitful discussion today at this panel. Starting with, of course, the presentation from United Nations Population Fund, and of course, thereafter, moderation and presentation by my colleague, Umut Tergezer, who is the coordinator for the implementation of the SEE2030 strategy. So once again, thank you very much for being with us in VTC mode today. And as I said, I look very much forward to constructive discussion during the meeting. Thank you very much. And to you, Umut. Yeah.
Thank you, Amer. Thank you for your opening remarks. As you stated that this is our third site event, which we have so far organized on the margins of the Regional Forum on Sustainable Development by the UNECE. We had these two site events 2 years ago when the SEE2030 strategy was in its first year of implementation. And this year we decided to have that site event to be a good opportunity, what we consider to discuss with the relevant audience on the human security and resilience, and in that context to discuss and to deep into the depopulation patterns which our region has been confronting with. In this regard, before we give the floor to Mihail Herman from UNFPA, we prepared a short presentation in order to set the scene and to inform the whole audience about the priorities of SEE2030, but also the current trends in this regard, how our people are perceiving the security situation within the region, what are the factors that are undermining or that are affecting their quality of life or standards of living. As you said that our, let's say, data are coming from the Securimeter, which the RCC has been, let's say, holding, now it's the fourth time. Yes, 4 years. As well as the audience will see some preliminary results of our Inclusive Growth Index, which is benchmarking our region with the remaining EU member states. So I'm going to share my screen in order to show the presentation to all of us. So let's go. And yeah. So the SEE2030 strategy is the all-inclusive strategy, which is adopted by the 13 economies of Southeast Europe in 2021. So with this feature, basically, it is all-inclusiveness endorsed by the highest political level in the regional cooperation in Southeast Europe, provided a sufficient and very deepened platform for solidarity and cooperation among 13 economies of Southeast Europe that include 5 EU member states, 6 Western Balkan economies, plus Moldova and Turkey. In this regard, Southeast Europe has 150 million people and of GDP of $2 trillion. If we can count Southeast Europe as a single country, it may even represent as the 7th biggest economy in the world. But even this, let's say, sheer size of Southeast Europe, there are many socioeconomic challenges in front of our region, which this SEE2030 strategy wants to, let's say, address. In this regard, there are, let's say, 5 main objectives of the strategy, which goes to reducing poverty and inequality, empowering women, improving social inclusion, decelerating depopulation through enhancing quality of life, and accelerating green and digital transition. Yes, these are very ambitious, let's say, objectives. And I may, let's say, recall that this strategy was adopted during the pandemic time, during the COVID time. Unfortunately, all of us, the region basically, which is neighboring, let's say, more, let's say, unexpected crisis due to the war in Ukraine, the whole setup has been changed from more, let's say, health-oriented challenges to security-oriented ones. In this regard, our economies in Southeast Europe then decided to include human security and resilience in this, let's say, list of primary objectives of SEE2030. And by the way, not only the war, which is stemming, let's say, these, let's say, traditional security threats, but also natural disasters we went through. Last year, the disastrous earthquake in Turkey and many seasonal wildfires and floods actually created human security or deteriorated human security conditions in our region. So if we may look at the overall global situation and compare to our region, we observe that human development conditions or the progress so far globally reached in human development conditions reversed in the last 3 years after pandemic. We all remember that all our leaders globally, regionally, stated that the humankind will build back better after the pandemic. With all this strong political commitment, unfortunately, this is not happening. Human development goes back. It's reversed. And that's why we need to pay attention of those factors. If we compare the overall trend, which the world actually in human development, you may see over the red line, this actually shows the, let's say, advanced economies, the ones who have very high development index score. And in the middle, our region. In the 90s, you see this, let's say, the war in, let's say, in the region, of course, understandably pushed back the human development conditions. But in the, let's say, early 2000s, all region, our region, Southeast Europe, went upward the trend. But now, starting with, let's say, this in the last 3 years after the pandemic, we actually went back. I don't know how and when this fall will stop and we will bounce back. But we will discuss today, I think, all those, let's say, root causes of those challenges that we are confronting with. And this reversed progress in human development, I may say globally, but also in the region, creates feeling of insecurity in people's perception. Our people, all of us, now do not feel secure, particularly for our future. These graphs are made of data from the survey, which we call our Securimeter. And we ask our people in Western Balkans economies whether they feel secure in the next 12 months in the economies where they live and also for the region in the Western Balkans. And what we see is that 40% of our people do not feel secure in the next 12 months, basically next year, in the economies where they live. But their feeling of insecurity is much higher for the region. So this tells that our people may have slightly better opinion about their economies, about the places where they live, but they have, let's say, much worse opinion or more pessimistic opinion of the other economies, which their economy is neighboring in the region. this was, let's say, previous slide was about the personal perception on the security, I mean, for individual lives. But when we look at these traditional security threats, whether it's increasing or not by years, and in this graph, you will see is that the number of fatalities caused by state or non-state actors involved in the conflicts, either in the region itself, in Southeast Europe, in 13 economies, or in the countries or the territories neighboring the Southeast Europe region, which I only took into account green borders. I did not take into account blue borders. So you will see, all of us see that in this red line, that starting from 2010, our neighbors went through very violent conflicts. So it's in Syria, now in Ukraine, basically it creates a lot of fatalities, which may contribute to this feeling of insecurity at the individual level, but also at the macro level. So then I think it could be very meaningful when we look at the different determinants of our lives, the quality or the standards of our living, based on this personal perception survey that we run in Western Balkans. So what we see is that out of this scale of 1 to 5, 1 is the most negative one and 5 is the most positive. The mean, basically the midpoint of this scale is 3. And the average satisfaction level of our people is 2.5, basically below midpoint. We can say that overall our people are not very much satisfied with the standards of living in Western Balkans. But this is the red line, 2.5 is the mean point. And when we look at which parts of our life are below this red line, so people's satisfaction level on the current economic matters, such as the cost of living or the level of wages, are below, significantly below this red line. You see electricity, food and fuel, these are prices of heating, prices of electricity, prices of food and fuel. Whether they are satisfied or not, by far they are significantly dissatisfied. But not only for the current, let's say, challenges which that they are facing, but also for their future. If we look at the pension, we asked them whether they are satisfied with the pension system or not, which they said no. And that's why these are, let's say, parts which are affecting the current, but also future, let's say, qualities of our personal lives. And when we look at which factors of their life that they are not dissatisfied, I cannot say satisfied, but they are not dissatisfied, is basically the level of tolerance which in the societies which that they live, that they are not at least complaining. But for education, air quality, access to public services, including utility services, health, are having much lower dissatisfaction level compared to the other socioeconomic hardships. So then, based on the same survey, we try to make a kind of simple, very basic profiling. Who has the immigration intention? Who wants to live and work abroad? Because we ask them, we ask our people whether they live and work abroad or not. And overall level of immigration intention of our Western Balkans population is 28.4%. So out of 100 people, 28 of them wants to live and abroad. But according to age groups, if we look at by age cohorts, so our youngsters are having much higher immigration intention that reaches 50%. 50% of our young people wants to leave. That's why in our session, we have a representative from our youth. We are going to listen to her and to carefully hear her opinion, at least to listen what are the considerations and concerns of our young people. We look at also in this profiling whether people who are feeling insecure also has immigration intention compared to the ones who do not feel insecure. So what we see is that the ones who do not have optimistic opinion about the security situation and the future of their economies have much higher, let's say, immigration intention. 36% of the ones who do not feel secure wants to leave, wants to go to abroad, while the ones who feel secure has only 33%. So there is almost 13 percentage point margin between the ones who feel secure and insecure. Most worrisome for the future of our human capital, because the ones who have higher education, university graduates or PhDs, master degrees, are having much higher tendency to immigrate compared to the high school graduates. So the ones who have much higher education wants to live abroad. And if they are younger, this immigration intention gets much higher. This is, by the way, a global trend. It's not specific for the region. Almost all countries, their youngsters, particularly from the developing countries, wants to emigrate to the developed economies. And in our region, it's very interesting, not only the ones who are young and having higher education, but maybe unemployed, but the ones who are employed also wants to immigrate. Even the ones who have jobs want to immigrate. So here what we see is that the employed people among youngsters are having 44% immigration intention. 44, let's say, employed youngsters out of 100 wants to immigrate. And if we look at even the seniors, even if they are employed, that they want to immigrate, like, for example, the ones who are having the age between 55 and 64, that they want to immigrate as well. Even in that group, the ones who are employed is having the highest immigration intention. So these are personal perceptions. The data are at the individual level. But as you said that we recently embarked upon an initiative, let's say together with the approval of the Southeast Europe 2030 Strategy Monitoring Committee, basically 13 economies approval, based on the official data to measure how our economic growth performance in the region is inclusive, including different parts of our society in a comparative way. So inclusive growth as a concept is not a, let's say, new concept. It has been studied by different international organizations, ranging from Asian Development Bank to the European Union. And as you see in this slide, that many definitions are being employed by those international organizations. Many of them are emphasizing this pro-poor growth, let's say economic growth that includes different parts of the society. But none of them focuses on depopulation or trying to establish connection between inclusive growth and depopulation. But with our efforts, I hope we are going to contribute to this discussion in this international arena, that our concept of inclusive growth will include depopulation by saying that Inclusive growth for us is sustainable economic growth, which reduces poverty and inequality, empowers women, improves social inclusion, and reduces depopulation through enhancing the quality of life for all. So that's why we selected 7 components under this inclusive growth index. And out of this, 8 components, 69, if I'm not mistaken, different indicators we selected that are related to depopulation and depopulation-related challenges of our region. And we benchmarked our 13 economies with the remaining EU member states, basically EU22. So what we see here is that the widest diversion in these 8 components is basically in the standards of living between our region and the remaining EU member states, but also in innovation, infrastructure, and connectivity. In terms of stability, the margin is very close. Education, we have less wider diversion gap. Even though, of course, we are backward, but we are, let's say, the diversion gap or the convergence gap is quite narrow. But in standards of living, innovation, infrastructure, and connectivity, and quality of institutions. Yes, and then economic activity. Yes, you see here is that these, let's say, the very preliminary results of our inclusive growth index. And maybe by late this year, we are going to finalize the construction of our index. It will be announced publicly. And we are going to, let's say, initiate our flagship reporting, which every year we will introduce the inclusive growth index. The data will be publicly available and our own analysis. So I hope that this actually set the scene for the further interventions. First one, as I said, that Mr. Herman, from UNFPA. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And then, if you allow me, I'm going to introduce Michael Herman, who is Senior Advisor in Economics and Demography of the UN Population Fund. Mr. Herman has 25 years of experience. He has extensive experience in management of key accounts and science and policy interface. He has recognized expertise in the fields of economics,